Now.
I think we are. So, hey, Happy New Year for everybody. We wanted to spend a little bit of time on having an exciting New Year's process. Again, I'm Stephen Oliver, joined by Dr. I guess I should say, Greg Moody, and Bob Dunn and Mindy Godfrey. And what we wanted to do is give you some thoughts and ideas to expand your horizons a little bit on a marketing plan. And my hope is that October, November is when you put together your first quarter marketing plan, not the first week of January. But what we do know is endemic in this industry. Financial advisors tend not to do enough or a lot of marketing to begin with, and when they do it, it tends not to be a very broad range. So, if that's you, shame on you. But we'll give you some ideas to expand from there. But let's start with this: is what we see in not just financial advisors, but in every business, especially small businesses, everybody's looking for the magic pill. They're looking for like the one thing. And it seems like, with us, it's, do a lunch meeting or a dinner meeting and, saturate with mail and get people to come in. Or it's in a lot of areas, they think that their only traffic comes from referrals, and they're looking for the magic sentence to say to people, how to, give me all your friends in your Rolodex. Or they're looking for the magic LinkedIn thing. And LinkedIn, a lot of the strategies on LinkedIn seems to me to be better off to, go to the houses by the golf, course and start knocking on doors, than cold messaging everybody on LinkedIn, hoping to build a real relationship of trust that way. But what we want to do is always focus on building what, I stole from Jay Abraham, a Parthenon. You want to have like 15 or 20 things going on every month, some of which are going to be really successful in any given month, some of which aren't going to be necessarily that successful in any given month. But these can be all online strategies and offline strategies. They can certainly combine referrals and should. Lots of different referral systems with all kinds of other activities, search, blogging, podcasts, social media with LinkedIn, social media with Facebook. You want to build that Parthenon. Greg, let me hand it off to you. Where would you start? If you were, maybe you're behind the eight ball, or you only started with one or two things, and you wanted to really get your new client flow, get your assets under management way up for the first quarter, where would you start?
Well, one thing I'd maybe start with is talking to the current clients that I have and seeing what things they need, because a lot of investment advisors, and this time they get a new client, and then they hope that they just keep their money in the market, and instead of talking to them about what other things that they should be doing. And a lot of times that brings up new ways that they should be investing their money, which ends up being productive for the company. If we talk to the people that we have, they could have family members that they that they want to pass their money down to. Well, those family members also have investment needs, and they really are going to have a much better outcome for their whole family if they're working with you as the investment advisor as well. So the easiest thing to do really is to make sure that you're communicating with your current clientele on a more regular basis. And so often we see the only time that the advisor is talking to the client is when the client gets mad or decides they're going to leave them, or maybe once a year they have some sort of review that's kind of built into their structure. But if it's happening on a more regular basis, they're going to be a lot happier with you. I think a stat that you mentioned the other day was only 40% of clients are happy with the advisor that they have. That means 60% are unhappy with it, either looking for somebody new or just unhappy and not saying anything. So what we want to do is, this covers a lot of sins right now, but really to get more business for your practice, this is a great way to expand your business just with your current clientele.
Well, sure. And one of the things, I was sitting down with one of our clients, and what I was trying to get him to launch with is 26 contacts a year with everybody in his client list. And obviously what happens with most people is, you're doing a once a year review, or you're doing a quarterly review or something like that. And you can really maximize your time if you're constantly in communication with them. And I don't mean you're picking up the phone and calling 40 people a day, but what I mean is they're getting cards on every holiday, New Year's cards, Thanksgiving cards, etc. They're getting regular communications, they're getting letters. You overlay maybe 26 contacts a year with a daily email that's going out to all of your clients. And of course, that creates another 360 contacts. But, and I'd give credit if I remembered, but I was listening to a great podcast. As you guys know, I've done 300 different niche podcasts in the last 90 days, all runs together. But one of the gentlemen I was listening to is really smart point is he said, each one of your clients only knows you, and in fact, most of them only know you from what particular problem you solved for them. They don't know the broader range of things you do. It's not for top of their mind. So one of the things in this communication is clarifying all the different types of problems you solve. As you mentioned, Greg, is an awful lot of people have a client, especially, maybe you put them in disability insurance and a term policy, and you haven't thought about it since. But they have assets that need to be managed. They have more assets. They have, other insurance needs, et cetera. What happens so many times, though, to generate referrals, going back to my original train of thought, was if they don't know the different problems that you can solve, and I don't mean products. Nobody cares about products. What they care about is different types of problems you can solve and different types of needs that would be addressed, right? So I was listening again to another advisor whose primary job is to help with mediation and divorce and help the financial settlement be equitable to everybody, but also be, effective tax-wise and effective long-term investments, everything else. Well, if all your clients don't know, number one, the range of things that you do, then topics are going to come up all the time of people they should refer to that they don't even think about it. Your name doesn't even come up. The second thing I think that's important in that topic is it's always good to have something as a pass along. So that's why, we talk a lot about having your own book, having your own book. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. It could be 70 pages or 120 pages. But having something, one, online, it can be used as a lead magnet, to use that terminology. But from a client standpoint, what if you put out a small book quarterly on different topics that each of your clients got 4 or 5 and they've got laying around and they can pass it along? That I've seen that work tremendously well. Obviously other pass along things as well, but without getting focused on it all being digital, there needs to be physical pass along stuff. Mindy, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think along that line, when you're thinking about connecting with people, especially this time of year, having those lunch meetings or dinner meetings is still kind of iffy at the moment. And taking advantage of the webinars and some of the topics can be a really great thing. Being able to open up that webinar at the end for a Q&A so you can actually chat with people. Like right now with people thinking ahead towards, okay, we just finished a year, we're looking ahead at tax time. What are those things that they can still do to, optimize for taxes? What do they need to do to be prepared? And how can you help them do that? That's always a huge pressure point for people at this time of year. And so that's a really great way to have a good connection with your clients. And when you solve a tax problem for them or make their tax stress less, they're definitely going to tell their friends about you. That's going to be a great way to build some connection in this season.
Well, and frankly, you should have done, 2 or 3 Zoom live meetings, including Q&A with your clients in the fall. You should be doing stuff like that. The more you can do one-to-many communication, where you keep your personality in front of them, you keep your expertise in front of them, better off you are. And then all of those kinds of events, can be where they can bring their friends, they can invite their family members, et cetera. Obviously that done right, we got to have registration pages and follow-up systems and, sequential autoresponders, all that stuff, but done right, that can create a tremendous flow of new clientele. The thing we haven't touched, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, sometimes that can be intimidating when you say that stuff. It can be intimidating for some of the advisors, but it's really pretty simple. And we say it's simple, and some people say, well, yeah, right. But we help walk people through this. So there's a lot of content that we're giving you right now, but it's pretty easy to go through. We help walk everybody through this. We're trying to just compress as much as possible, as much as we can in 30 minutes here.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The thing that we do is help people take a 42-point to-do list and turn it into a 3-point to-do list. And a lot of this stuff, as far as automation, once you set it up, it's done. All you have to do is, check it occasionally, make sure nothing broke. What were you gonna say, Bob?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate how important it is to really get to know your clients, because and understand that the better that you get to know them, you have to ask what it is or how they or who it is that they know, then how you might be able to help them. So getting to know your clients and actually coming out and asking them, not waiting for them to introduce you to somebody else, but make the effort to go ahead and ask them who it is that they know that they might be able to help them, or what it is that they might need help with.
Yeah.
Excuse
You
me.
know, and taking a little bit of a side, not to be a broken record, but what most advisors don't do is they don't sit down and look at what the lifetime value and the rolling 12-month value is of a new client. And it's a really important number to know, because when you start not referral marketing, but when you start doing paid Facebook advertising, when you start doing direct mail, you start doing all this stuff. If you know going in, like, you know, I've worked in the franchise industry, and if a franchisor spends $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 to get a new franchisee, they're tickled to death. But they know the lifetime value is going to be $60,000, $70,000. Again, another podcast I was listening to, the advisor said, well, his average client's worth $6,000 a year, and they stay with him an average of 10 years. Well, if you have a lifetime value of $60,000, that gets you way over the hump of being scared to spend $500, $1,000, $2,000 to get a new one. And then that gets you over the hump of being willing to invest appropriately and effectively in direct mail, in paid advertising on LinkedIn, Facebook, on pay-per-click advertising, paying somebody to handle SEO for you, all of those different things. But you know, let's go through a list of what really kind of is a minimum everybody should be doing. And Mindy, you mentioned lunch and dinner meetings. You know, my pet peeve on that is, you know, so many advisors are you know, dangling a steak in front of somebody to get them into a meeting. And then they end up in a meeting on a topic they have no interest in, you know, looking for, you know, their Ruth Chris filet. You know, I know the allure of making it easy to get bodies in the room, but if I'm going to do something, what I want is I want people who are interested in the topic, who are likely buyers. You know, people call people who come to these meetings and don't buy plate lickers, which number one means they haven't computed the average lifetime return on investment, and they haven't computed what it's costing them to get a new client in these things. But the other thing it means is they're dangling bait to get people who aren't really interested in the topic in the room, and that's completely counterproductive. But let's go through some of the things that, in my mind, everybody should be doing right now. One is you should have built out your website pretty thoroughly. And some of the ways you can build out your website thoroughly on SEO, we just did, what did we do, just 2 hours on this 2 hours ago, Greg, but is having a podcast, and now you driving from your website, you get found all over the place, you know, building blogs out. Talk about that a little bit, Greg, and then we'll go to some of these other pillars.
Yeah, and you know, this speaks to a lot of things that we need to do as an investment advisor. You need to be an expert. I mean, this helps you be an expert, but it also is something that's really not done very well, frankly, in this industry at all. And this is how Google connects with you. Google wants to see content, and they want to see relevant content. Google wants to see relevant content, and Google wants to see recent content. So we see so often that we have you know, somebody who's got you know, maybe a decent website, but they haven't added any content to it on a regular basis. So it just kind of dies in the ranking when somebody's searching for investment advisors. So you look like everybody else. And what we want to be able to have happen for you is that when somebody's searching for investment advice, or they're searching for lots of other keywords that might come up, like they may be searching for investing my money, or you know, what to do when I retire, or whatever are the things that they may be searching for. And sometimes it's different geographically, or in some
401k rollovers and stuff.
yeah, or for your niche. Your niche might be, we were talking to one guy the other day in La Jolla, and his niche was like you know, tech executives. So those guys might have different search criteria than other people. So if your niche is going to be something, then you should be blogging about those kind of things, so that when Google indexes your website, it knows that there's lots of content about that, but also that it's recent. And that way, when people are searching for you, you're going to pull up ahead of other people, and you're going to have, not just in one location, but potentially connect your website out to lots of other content places. I say places, not just websites, but other places on the internet, you mentioned podcasts, which is another good way to do it, but there's other areas on the internet you can connect to when you do a lot of, when you build out a lot of content. So that way you show up, you want to show up in lots of different places. It builds a lot of authority on the internet. So that's another word that you can remember, is you want to have enough authority on the internet so that you show up more.
Yeah.
That's the simplest.
Go all the way back to Seth Godin when he wrote that permission marketing book. Is one thing to think about in your marketing is to make it overly simple, there's two types of marketing. There's interruption and there's permission marketing. Interruption is, I'm watching a TV show and a 30-second spot comes on. I open the mailbox and an unsolicited piece of mail shows up in the mail. I go on Google and somebody is running a retargeting ad, or I go on Facebook and it shows up in my feed. And there's an argument that happens all the time, and it's a stupid argument of, make all of your marketing permission-based, make all of your marketing where you're nurturing and so forth. Well, yeah, except in order to get them there, to nurture them, you had to interrupt them and get in front of them to begin with, right? So the two work hand in hand. It's a stupid argument that happens, right? So, but when we build out the marketing, what you're talking about there, Mindy, you recommended that book, or a friend of yours recommended that book, asking what they ask, you answer.
They ask you answer,
It's the whole idea of content marketing. But what you're talking about with search and with podcast is they're looking for a solution to a specific problem. They find you as the expert. You answer, their questions, preferably provide, what some people call a lead magnet, but you provide some reason for them to give you more contact information. I always like name, address, email, phone number, everything, but at least get an email address, and then you can drip on them by email. You can drip on them by mail. Preferably have enough of an offer that you're mailing them a book, or you're mailing them a big box of stuff, or something in between, so that you get them to come into your funnel. Then a lot of them that you get into your funnel, maybe they're buyers right now. Most of them are buyers in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Maybe it takes 2 years, but you want to continue that conversation and stay in front of them regularly. So we were good. You guys,
yeah, I was going to say that's a big mistake. What you just pointed out is good to reiterate it. That a lot of times what we see is, and you asked again, what would people do right now? What a lot of people should be doing right now is looking back over their list of prospects that they've had over the last year, because very frequently they don't understand that you might have had somebody cross your desk or got into your space or responded to some marketing that you've done, and they didn't buy right then because you sent them something, or you emailed them, or you called them, and they said no at that moment, or they weren't ready at that moment. But people aren't always going to be ready to buy at that moment. Even if they responded to some marketing that you did, they may be ready in the next 3 months or 6 months, like you just said. So that's a whole nother component of what you can do right now to try to grow your business is start working on the prospects that you had over that time, because now might be the time that they're ready. In fact, now is a really great time for them to be ready.
Yeah.
They're probably reflecting on what happened prior year versus a new year, and wanting to make advances on that.
Well, and a big mistake business owners make is that they think that because somebody said no at time A, is that they're always going to be a no, and that's the opposite of the case. If somebody was just in your space and they became a prospect at one moment, they're much more likely to say yes later. And that's something that I think, I heard from Jay Abraham too, that the when they become a prospect in that way and they've raised their hand at some point, they're much more likely, and they're much more, it's much more valuable to spend money on and time on those guys to get them to respond. They're more likely to respond than just trying to continue to market to the rest of the world.
Yeah. Almost always when we do free evaluations with advisors, that's one of my first questions is how many people do you have in your prospect database going back a year? And of course, a lot of them say, what do you mean by that? But how many people do you have that were referred to you, that came in from other sources, that came in from dinner meetings, lunch meetings, they came in from filling out web pages, whatever it is? How many of those do you have going back a year, maybe 3 or 4 years, that haven't converted yet? And the more you've been dripping on them and communicating with them, the further back you can go. Because if it's 4 years ago and they haven't heard from you since, you might as well just be getting a cold database. But I always start with that, like you were saying, and they should have gotten a Thanksgiving card, a Christmas card, and a New Year's card, and an offer to get back into your active pipeline, and then go from there. The other thing I always ask is, how many active clients do you have? And of course, sometimes active means they talked to them 3 years ago. But how many active clients do you have? How frequently are you communicating with them? How effectively have you communicated your range of services to them? When is the last client, appreciation event? All these questions about what referral systems do you have in place? So do you have a client appreciation events that they can bring friends? Do you have Zoom meetings they can bring people? Do you have webinars they can bring people to? Are you sending out copies of your book that they can pass along? Are you sending out copies of reports that they can pass along? And you can go, keep going from that for different ways. But let's shift gears. What some of the other things that they should be doing right away? And I always put direct mail in at the top of the list. The thing that makes direct mail work is the list. So if you wanted to start off January strong, I would be mailing the heck out of my prospect list. Anybody who came into my pipeline 1, 2, 3, 4 years, the longer you go, you have got to make sure that they know who you are still. But mailing to all those prospects to get them back into your pipeline and get some communication with them from there. Expand from there. What else?
I was going to say, today with Zoom, it's just so much more effective to really pull a group of people together. There's you're not, it really has changed the dynamics on being able to get in front of your prospects or even your clients, just to, and I don't consider it selling, I consider it educating. So educating them, getting to know them, and so forth. But I just wanted to pitch that in. And obviously referrals is just a tick in everything that you're teaching them to help them grow their business.
Well, a personal bitch, and I'll throw this in as well. It seems like advisors are really bad about, I work with people in Lakewood, Colorado, or Golden, Colorado. I'm here in Evergreen, on top of the mountain, or I work with people in La Jolla, or they're strangely geographically centered. And if COVID did one thing for people, is it made them familiar with Zoom, familiar with other video platforms. It made them comfortable making decisions, including, decisions about investing their wealth and so forth from distance. So really, it's even a broader reason why you should choose a niche of, I work with Apple employees, or I'm the guy for dentists, or whatever it might be. Once you choose that niche, you could be working with people. You got to, have your licenses up to date in each of the states based upon volume, but you could be anywhere in the country or arguably in the world, depending upon what your product range is and so forth. So that's another thing is when we start talking about LinkedIn, Facebook, SEO, Google search, but also when we start talking about direct mail and those things, is you can create a really broad range geographically, as long as you can narrow it in. The dumbest thing anybody ever says, I was reading a marketing book by one of the industry gurus, and he said, just remember, everybody in the, there's 350 million people in the United States, every one of them needs you. Well, that's just the most moronic statement I've ever heard from a marketing standpoint. Is, although, it may be right in principle, but what you need to do is you need to be targeting a very specific group of people, because that way you can become the celebrity and the expert to that group of people, and not, if you're trying to market to everybody, good luck. You've got to be Fisher or somebody like that that's big enough to be able to invest the bucks, TV, radio, direct mail, et cetera, to ever get anywhere near that.
Yeah, to expand on that, it helps you focus. You can't focus on everybody, and that's a big mistake people make, and that's why they end up just not knowing what to do. I don't know what to do if I don't know who to market to.
Yeah, some people use the term avatar, but it's creating that avatar or that ideal client. If you had your ideal client, the one that you love to work with the best, and the one that you do the best work for, that appreciates you more, build a picture. What do they look like? What's their background? What are their career? What are their needs? What are their problems? If you build that perfect client, then it's relatively easy. And I mean, it's the beauty of arenas like Facebook and LinkedIn. But the direct mail industry has been there for 100 years, where you can target it in. I mean, I could be a dog lover and target, subscribers to dog magazines, and I could be ads in the dog magazines and be the dog lovers and investment guru if I wanted to be. It's narrowing in and really having an idea of who you're focusing on. That's a really important concept that you were hitting upon, Bob. Well, we're going to run out of time here, and we've just barely scratched the surface. But I guess what I would say is start with your prospect list. Get not just email, but direct mail, outbound telephone calls, email. Upload the list into Facebook and be showing display ads to them in Facebook. Upload the list into Google, be showing display ads to them in Google. Upload the list in LinkedIn and friend them and contact them that way as well. Then I would go through my prospects and make sure I have not prospects, but my clients, and make sure I have 26 contacts a year or more, including big group live events that they can come to, smaller group live events, niche focused live events. One of my advisors is very focused on CEOs, business owners in $2 to $5 million annual revenue range. Well, okay. So we think of different topics that those particular people would like, and we have webinars and open meetings for them. The second thing to do is, if you're really good at live meetings, that's great. You do everything you did with a live meeting. It did everything from the promotional, if you were doing a good job with that. Everything else, you just shift it to webinar, or I prefer, you can do a Zoom webinar, but I prefer interactive. You've got to be able to handle that well, but you can shift all of that marketing that you did in a live meeting to online. If you didn't shift back to that immediately, you missed the boat. It was a really easy transition. We want to be building out our web presence, and the two things that you want to focus on primarily on that are the podcasts and the blogs. There's other pieces to that. Greg, you mentioned a minute ago, and when you were talking about the way their site looks, you were doing it in the context of how it looks to Google. But from a standpoint of how it looks from a prospective client, I got to tell you, it's scary. Mindy, you've looked at how many advisor websites in the last couple of months?
I think I'm over 1,000 now.
Yeah, they are all the same.
Yes, they are.
The language is the same. It's all generic. They all say the same things. You want to be a character. If there's anything you do in your marketing, is be idiosyncratic. I mean, look at people in popular culture that stand out. I forget what his name was. Remember the famous lawyer that had the ponytail and wore the buckskin? What was his name? But
I can't remember, but he wrote a couple of books. He was really interesting. And
yeah.
Well known, yeah.
But you want to picture, how do you stand out from the crowd? Not be the guy in the JCPenney suit sitting in behind an oak desk, with all the same certificates, behind him and the alphabet soup behind his name. It's great that you've got credentials, but they want to trust you, the person. They don't want to trust or care about, frankly, all the alphabet soup things, unless it's a very specific need. So you've got to build that personality and be a celebrity to a very small group of people in a very targeted niche is the ideal. Well, what else would you do right away, Greg?
Yeah, well, we talked about at the very beginning, you did cover prospects, but investigate your own client base. So I don't think we reiterated that a little bit. I would hit right on that right away. So kind of going back to what we said at the beginning, right on your own client base, making sure that you, as you said really well, make sure you're solving all the problems that they need solved. Yeah. And then from that, what the rest of their family needs solved as well, because that's usually really important, especially for the people that we tend to work with that have high net income clients, very high assets under management. Those people want to leave a legacy. So they want to make sure that their kids and their grandkids are taken care of. And there's a lot of other problems that they're going to have when their life moves on in different places, and their family members probably need some help from you. So those are other ways to expand. It's kind of a referral, but it's kind of a little bit more than a referral when you're working with the family members too. So I would be working with my current clients and seeing what other problems I can solve. And there's a lot of room for growth in those areas.
Oh yeah, and again, I give credit if I remember who I heard say it, but they don't know the range of problems that you can solve for them. And so if you're not communicating that regularly, I mean, I've owned a bunch of businesses, sold some businesses. If I didn't know that my guy can handle all the, the financial implications around selling the business and how all that stuff works, I'd be out asking, probably out asking the CPA and the attorney for who they knew, or I'd be out Googling, looking for somebody to handle that kind of stuff for me. And
And if I could interrupt for a sec, it doesn't, just because you have it on your website or because you've mailed them stuff that says you do X, Y, and Z, that doesn't really mean much.
No.
You having a conversation with them saying you're going to do a review of what their status is based on what products what you're doing with them right now. And then having the conversation of, well, what are you doing over here? And what are you doing over here? That's the conversation. It needs to be a conversation with your clients, not just assuming, well, if you're thinking in your mind, well, yeah, I already have that on my website. Yeah, big deal. That really doesn't mean anything. That just supports and backs.
Nobody's studying your website.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they're at this moment thinking they need a CPA or they need some insurance or they need this other thing, then it doesn't mean they're going to go look at your particular website. They're probably going to just go Google it, find somebody else who's doing a better job at SEO than you, and then get the product from them. And then you're going to find out they're using somebody else for that, and you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And they're not going to be served as well. They'd be better off working with you on probably everything that they're doing.
Yeah. We're going to run out of time, but I might end with on that note. And of course, we can keep building out the marketing activities. What we'd love to do is talk to you guys, and free of charge, no sales pitch. We'd be happy to help you brainstorm and build out your New Year's marketing plan. And we have a big free package of information. Some of you already have it, but we'd be happy to gift it to you. It's at advisorwealthmastery.com. But what I was going to leave with is think in terms of how your clients or prospective clients, how they view you, how they make the decision, and how they go through the process. What too many of us go with is we think that they're interested in various products that we have available, or that they're just desperately searching for somebody to do a plan for them. Well, that's not what it's at. What they're looking for is they're looking for what a specific problem they're trying to solve, and somebody who can solve that problem. And then when they're making a decision about working with you, the decision is based upon whether they like and trust you. It's not based upon you vomiting out your resume and all the alphabet soup and all that stuff. What it's about is, do they like you? Do they trust you? Do they feel comfortable? Some of them are giving you $10 million their life savings. They've got to trust you, trust that you're going to do the best job for them. And advisors get way too bogged down into the here's the specific to the percentage, the annual return I got from my clients this year and last year, and one thing. Well, honestly, that's not what the business we're in. We're in the business of they trust you. You're helping to direct, to solve the problem and create the opportunities for them. You're showing them the range of possibilities. You're getting to the point where they like and trust you, and then they're trusting your advice to guide them and have the best returns. In fact, if you have the guy who's every 2 weeks bugging you about the markets are up and down, that's the client you want to fire. But it also means you didn't do a good job of laying the groundwork to begin with. I think we got to leave it there. We're about 5 minutes over our allotted time. But anybody have anything to finish with before we call it a day?
Let's start the year out big.
Yeah, maybe Mindy, the number to call.
Yeah, absolutely. The numbers are on the screen, but it's 303-808-8719. We'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely free of charge. Love to give you, make your head swim with some ideas on things you can do in the spring and give you a short list of action steps to go with it.
Thank you, guys.